So I made a video titled Why You Should Never Pay Collections, and people were in the comments big mad. They were telling me, don't tell people this is wrong, you should pay your bills, and stop telling people how not to pay their bills. Well, I'm here to piss people off yet again. Let's talk about why you should or should not file for bankruptcy. Everything I am listing in this video is legal, so when people get mad at me, it must be an error. Get mad at your lawmakers, all right? Let's get into it. So there are over 500,000 bankruptcies filed every single year, which for some people can seem as a fresh start, or similar to slamming, maybe a hammer in a mirror, it's going to be bad luck for 7 years. Although, we're not going to actually break no mirrors around here. Like, we got bills to pay. Either way, there are multiple options when you're considering bankruptcy. It's not just all or nothing. So let's get into the two most common bankruptcies, which are Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. Now, Chapter 7 is what we all pray for, right? Clean me out. Let me run up them credit card bills and then just kind of tell them creditors no thank you, right? This is a full liquidation. You are not going to owe anything. Now, a little caveat. With any bankruptcy, you cannot get rid of child support, and you cannot get rid of a couple of things: alimony, child support, taxes, certain taxes. So them babies will screw you for life. Get it? Screw, like what you had to do. Bankruptcy can actually super screw your credit, right? It's one thing to have it on your credit for 7 to 10 years, but the actual initial claim can affect you by maybe even 130 points to over 200 points. If you already have good credit, this is going to smack that ass a little bit harder, okay? Some cultures, we like that. In this situation, it's not good. I've actually even read that in certain situations, if your credit is extremely horrible, a bankruptcy might even improve your credit because it is wiping those things off of your credit report. So it just depends on kind of where you're at. But if you do have good credit score, in the 700s and above, expect this to dramatically impact your score. But things like unsecured debt and credit cards and things of that nature, things that really get people in trouble, yes, this will be a full and clear liquidation. Now, unfortunately, everybody ain't gonna get this, okay? You have to meet a certain income requirement or pass a means test. The income requirement, for the most part, is the median salary in your hometown, wherever you're living. If I can find a link, I'll drop it below so you can see what the median salary in your area is. But if you just type up median salary in my area, there should be links that will help you figure that information out. Now with Chapter 7, this is not only a full liquidation, it's also quick, right? Like, time is money. Clear this debt up right now for me, all right? It'll take maybe anywhere from 3 to 6 months. Might be more, might be less, it just depends, but this is quick compared to what I'm going to get into in a little bit. Now, it all sounds good, right? But there is another caveat. They will try to sell your assets, any assets that you do have, to try to give your creditors a little something, you know what I'm saying? So if you have like a really nice, expensive car, you best believe they're going to sell that and put you in a hoopty, okay? So you want to assess what assets you have. In most cases, they won't take your home. If you are current on the home, it just depends, right? So if you're current on your home, you probably could still stay there, but they'll still clean everything else out and try to sell whatever they can to give the creditors a little something for their problems. Now, if you have a business, this might not be the best option for you because they probably will end up closing your business. So you might want to do Chapter 13, which is called Reorganization. But if you're an individual, you don't have that much assets, but you do have a lot of debt, this might make a lot of sense for you, especially if you have lower income. Now, a Chapter 7 bankruptcy will last on your credit report for 10 years, okay? So they will be able to see that for the next decade. But after that, you're wiped clean, all right? Now, Chapter 13 is a little bit different, right? So this one is called Reorganization, as I mentioned before. It will not wipe away your debt, but it will make a more manageable payment option, right? So some creditors might demand some money right now. And you're like, hold up now, I don't have it, COVID. Everything is getting blamed on COVID these days. So even if it had nothing to do with COVID, it's COVID. But if you do have a lot of properties and assets and you don't want to get rid of them, this may be a better option for you because, like I said, it works out a payment plan. Now, the payment plans can go across a span of like anywhere from 3 to 5 years, maybe even more. It depends on what they work out for you, but your creditors are going to get paid back according to your payment plan. So it's not as quick as the Chapter 7, but it will not have as bad of an impact on your credit because it does only last for 7 years versus the 10 years under Chapter 7. and it doesn't affect your IM score as much. Once you do that initial filing, creditors, collection agencies, whoever and the like will leave you the hell alone, okay? You can have some freedom. Breathe easy, because they're not going to harass you. Once you make that initial file, those calls must come to a close until they figure out what the situation is going to be for you, okay? So that's a positive. I'm going to get into more positives in a second, but let's talk about the cons of bankruptcy. So as I mentioned before, Chapter 7 and Chapter 13, 10 to 7 years respectively, right? So if you do a Chapter 7, you're looking at 10 years of this reminder on your credit. And if you're looking at Chapter 13, 7 years on your credit. Another thing, you have to go to credit counseling. Now, that might not be bad, right? We don't get this information in schools, as I really mention every single video, quite literally. We don't get this information in school, so maybe a little credit counseling will help most people get on the right track. But it's just to prove that, you're going to learn your lesson, you're not going to do it again, and you're getting educated properly on how to manage your credit. This is mandated by the government, just like they're trying to mandate everything else out here. So you have to do this, unfortunately. But I think it might make sense, who knows? And as I mentioned, how does bankruptcy affect your credit? Number one, staying on there for all these years. And number two, those credit scores. That credit score is probably the biggest thing, because that takes a little bit of a while to rebuild. After that 7 to 10 year period, it's going to fall off your credit and you will see dramatic improvements to your credit. You should still be working on improving your credit during that time. You can still take out debt. You can still take out loans during this time. It may be a little bit harder, but it's not impossible, and it'll help you actually build your credit. So I'll tell you about that in just a second. Another thing to keep in mind is that it does cost a couple $100s, which is like, I just told y'all I ain't got it. Like, why would I have $100 for this or more? Actually, I think it's like a couple, like $200 or $300. It's hundreds, plural. So put some money aside for that. And you might go in there looking for Chapter 7 and come up with a Chapter 13, right? The government is actually going to dictate which one you are eligible for based on the certain criteria, like I mentioned, the income and the means test. So go in there wishing for the best, but expect the worst. I don't know. I feel like no matter which way you go, it's still going to be more manageable. It's still going to help you. So it helps to explore your options and see which one you actually qualify for. Another, I guess, con about this is like from a morality standpoint, as the people in my other video were trying to allude to, it's wrong. Like, you shouldn't do this. It's legal, number one. Number two, it was created because of companies taking advantage of certain people and taking advantage of certain businesses, right? They're trying to give businesses kind of like a fresh start. Sometimes these creditors are a bit predatory, right? And they had predatory lending standards. So this actually kind of punishes them. You should have been looking at my payment history, looking at my credit, looking at everything and making an assessment like, okay, maybe she wouldn't be able to afford this. Instead, they were just looking for their own pocket, so they kind of gave money out freely. This happened back in the great financial crisis back in 2008. Predatory lending. So that ends up getting people in a lot of trouble. And as a way to protect the people and to kind of punish the creditors, this is what they had as an option. The exact wording for the purpose of bankruptcy gives to the honest but unfortunate debtor a new opportunity in life and a clear field for future effort. That was beautiful. Bankruptcies only get rid of certain debt, another con, right? So if you're looking to get rid of, it doesn't get rid of medical bills, which is like one of the number one reasons people file bankruptcy, which is a whole nother video, right? But it gets rid of credit card bills. It gets rid of medical bills. Certain student loans you can get rid of, not the ones funded by the government. That you gonna die with that. But as always, when there's dark, there must be light, and there is a bright side to all of this. After the debts are discharged, okay? Don't do this before you get that note saying you're discharged. After these debts are discharged, you can start again. Why I emphasize this is because if you try to go get another credit card or get another loan or something while you're still in the bankruptcy process, they might go ahead and throw that credit card into the bankruptcy, and that had nothing to do with anything.
Now why am I in it?
And you could have did it.
See how I get wrong
because you never apologized.
Once you get your notification that your debts have been discharged, you won't see it on your credit report, and you can go ahead and work on rebuilding again. 7 years will go by just like that. I think about things that I was doing 7 years ago, and it honestly feels like it was yesterday. Same thing with 10 years. A decade can go just fly on by, all right? We done been in this pandemic for almost 2 years, which is crazy to me. So time is going to fly. It's not the end of the world. It's not like it stays on your credit report forever and ever, amen. there is light at the end of the tunnel. Another pro is obviously you don't have to pay the debt back. I mean, in some situations, right? Or you get a little bit of a break. You get a breather. You're not going to have creditors down your neck calling you and harassing you. You're going to actually be able to handle this debt in a way that is more manageable to you, or completely turn around and kind of forget about the debt in total, which is like really makes all the cons irrelevant, in my opinion. Now, who should not file for bankruptcy? I do not believe bankruptcy is for everybody who is drowning in their debt. Again, if you have certain debt you're trying to get rid of, that's not going to happen. So if you're trying to use this to get rid of your child support, you shouldn't have had the kid, all right? You got to figure out what you're going to do. A lot of jobs are hiring right now. Maybe try to pick up another job, but you're not getting out of it. So this is not for you. Also, while there is no minimum for filing for bankruptcy, I definitely don't think that people who have, maybe like $10,000 or less should be considering bankruptcy, because 10 years is a really long time if it's only $10,000, right? I mean, surely you could work out something else. You can do consolidations, which I actually have videos on that up here. So click this if you want to get information on that, where you can kind of consolidate your debt into a personal loan, or maybe into a different credit card, do a balance transfer. There are other options that may make it a little bit more manageable for you, as opposed to just having to go through this whole process of a bankruptcy, have it on your credit report for a long time, when it was really something you could have managed and still keep your credit in at least better tact than it will be if you get the bankruptcy. Also, if it's not that high of an amount, you can typically work with the creditors themselves. Like, you don't have to make it go through the government. You can say, listen, maybe you're going to charge this debt off because you don't think you're going to get it back from me. I still want to work with you. Can we work out a payment plan? There are other options other than bankruptcy if it's not a whole bunch of money. I mean, if it's like $50,000, then yeah, they're probably not trying to hear nothing about working out, right? Like, chances are you're not going to pay that back. But $10,000, $5,000, like anything like that, super manageable. You can try to do it on your own. But if you made it to the end, keep on binge watching. I have a video right here about personal debt and why you should not pay your collections agencies back. See ya.